Hi everyone, this is Claudia and I'm with Time for Stamping. I wanted to show you a very simple but effective fun fold card that you can use with any of your Christmas cards this year. It's basically an easel card, but it has a little catch to it that the panels are a little bit smaller and all of the inside panels are covered with designer series paper. So this one I happen to use the A Child is Born stamp set. And then these leaves out of silver and navy blue, Night of Navy, are actually from the Label Me Grateful die. So anyway, this just opens like this, or you catch it on the little greeting there, and then of course it stands like that, so people can just have it standing even as a little decoration. Now, I wanted to show you how to make the fun fold. So I'm actually going to do this with a different set of paper. Just showing you to use whatever supplies you have on hand. If you don't happen to have The Child is Born, you can use some other color in some other sets. Now this happens to be real red. The base is 11 inches by 4 1/4, and I've scored it at 5 1/2 and 2 3/4. So I'm just making like a Z fold with this. Very easy to do. And you can see why it's called a Z fold. Okay, this is going to be the base of the card, and this will be like this. All right, so now I've got 3 panels, and I'm just going to cover those panels with some other cardstock and some designer paper. Now for this one, I use boho blue as the cardstock, and again, the designer paper on this one is the Peaceful Garden, which is in the new mini catalog. But for this one, I'm actually going to just cover it with white, basic white cardstock is my second layer. So this is 5 3/4 by 4 1/8, not 5 3/4, 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. Oh my goodness, I'm getting all confused here. And then these 2 panels will be 4 inches by 4 1/8 inch by 2 5/8 of an inch. So it does leave a little border of real red around there. Okay, so I have 2 of those panels. And you'll see in a minute why I've chosen just white as my second color for my cardstock, because we're going to use the very pretty Traditions of Christmas designer series paper. Okay, so again, these 2 panels are 4 1/8 by 2 5/8, and this one is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Okay, so for this panel, I have a piece of, isn't that beautiful? The designer series paper. It's called Traditions of Christmas. The other side is a plaid. But I love these flowers on it. Okay, and it has the gold foil in it. It's just so pretty. So this is going to be on the larger bottom panel. And this is 4 inches by 5 1/4. So now you can see why I have the white down there. It just makes a really nice border around that designer series paper. And this again is the designer series paper. Coordinates with the poinsettias on here. And it's the same designer series paper, the Traditions of Christmas. And these are 2 1/2 inches by 4 inches. So I'm just going to put those on the white panels. And as I said, you can use whatever supplies you have on hand. If you have a different designer series paper, different stamp sets, you know, even retired things that you have from last year or the year before, just go ahead and use whatever you have. That's the beauty of a card sketch like this is that you can adapt it to make use whatever supplies you have. Okay, so now this, I'm going to put it sideways here so it fits in the screen better. This is what this looks like open. Again, 11 inches by 4 1/4. And we've scored it at 5 1/2 and 2 3/4. So it sits like that. And then when you open it, you still see that pretty designer paper there. Okay, so now I'm going to make a little panel for the front. And I just have a piece of basic white, which I've already cropped with, as you can see, I've cropped it with the stitched rectangle die, which again is a retired set, but I've held on to it because I really like this set. I like the sizes of the rectangles as well as the stitching around it. Now I'm going to be using a sentiment here. May the wonder and magic of Christmas fill you with delight. And it's from the new Joyful Tidings set. Okay, and I'm using real red. And I'm just going to put that kind of, make sure I have it the right way. Don't want to put it upside down. Right, sort of in the middle, like that. Okay, that gives me plenty of room to sign it at the bottom. And then I'm going to decorate it with a couple flowers. Now this happens to be a poinsettia from a retired set called Illuminated Christmas. I just like the little poinsettia there, and I think it matches the poinsettia in this designer paper very well. But again, use whatever you have on hand. If you don't have this, I'm sure you have poinsettias from another set. I'm stamping it in pecan pie, actually. I think just one will do on there. And then I'm going to color it with some Stampin' Blends. I have light and dark real red. I have dark lemon lolly. I'm going to color the center with dark lemon lolly. Let me pull you in just a little bit closer. There we go. So I'm just kind of dotting that center like that, and it gives it just enough color there. Okay, I see I have some leaves and I forgot to bring down my green, so we're just going to pretend I've colored those little leaves green. Okay, and then I have light real red, so I'm going to start coloring my petals with the light real red. Now if you remember on the paper here, there is some of the lighter red color, the red shades on there. So I'm starting with light real red, and then I'll add some darker shades in there, trying to match up the designer series paper a little bit. Okay, so there's my light real red. Let's see what the dark looks like if I put some of that in here. Just kind of feathering that out into the end of the petals. And again, you can see how that is kind of shading that a little bit. And I even brought down my light and dark cherry cobbler, so let's add a little bit of that. See what that looks like. That's almost about the same color as the dark. Let me try the dark, see what happens with that. Okay, that is a little bit darker shade. So again, I'm just adding a little bit of color to that, and then I'm going to go back and kind of blend that in just a little bit with the light shade of real red. Okay, so that looks pretty good. You can see the shading on there. And as I said, there's leaves behind that, and I forgot to bring down my green marker, so we're just going to pretend that those are colored, okay? Now, again, I cut this out with a stitch rectangles die, and then the next larger size I actually cut with gold foil. So hopefully, now glue doesn't normally stick to gold foil very well, so I'm going to have to let this dry a little bit. Oh, come on now. There we go. There we go. And this is going to leave a really pretty gold border around there. Okay. Now this is going to go right on top of here. Now initially I was going to use red or cherry cobbler as my background, but with all of this red in this designer series paper and with the gold touches that it has on the flowers, I thought this gold would look really pretty, so that's what I went with here. Okay, so now I'm just going to glue this onto this panel. So I need to put glue about this far down. You can just go ahead and eyeball that. And if you're using a tape runner, of course, use your tape runner. So that will go like that. I just want to press that down real good. Hold that in place for a minute so that it stays on there very good. Okay, so we have that. And now all I need to do is make a little greeting to put here for this to hold on to. Okay, so I have a piece of, again, basic white, which is, let's see, I think this is 5/8 of an inch wide. And this sentiment that I'm using, the greeting, says bright and happy Christmas wishes, and this is from the Jolly Holly stamp set, which I believe is an online exclusive. And I'm using real red. And just going to put that right on there. Okay. And then I'm just going to snip the edges of that. So get that nice and close to there. If you want to use your paper trimmer, you can do that. So this actually ends up being about 2 1/8 of an inch long. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to put that on dimensionals onto a piece of real red that I've cut just a little bit larger. So this is 3/4 of an inch wide by about 2 1/4 inch. Okay, this was 2 1/8, so this is 2 1/4, 5/8, and we went up to 3/4 for this next piece of cardstock here. And just going to put that right in the middle, and then we'll have a nice little border of red around there, like that. All right, and again, it kind of gets lost on the designer series paper, so I made yet another layer with the gold foil. And then this is just a little bit bigger again. So this is 7/8 of an inch wide by about 2 3/8 of an inch long. And I will have all of these measurements on my blog, which is Time for Stamping. The 4 is the number 4, not the word. And that's just going to go right on top of that gold foil. So we have a nice, you can see how much nicer that looks with the gold behind there. And then this, I'm just going to go ahead and glue right onto the card base. Yeah. Okay, so again, just a little bit of glue. Or if you're using tape runner, of course, use your tape runner. So I want this to open and catch right about like that. So I'm just going to put this in here, let that sit a minute, and we're all set. Okay, again, very easy to do, very quickly, can very quickly make a very pretty card just using basically designer series paper. I used sentiments for this. If you have a longer sentiment, you wouldn't even have to put a flower on there, but I thought it matched these flowers so nicely, so that's what I did with that. And now this one sits like that. There we go, just like that. And we're all set. And as I said, this folds down. This flap covers that, so when somebody opens it up, they can see that all they have to do is stick that right like that. Okay, and again, here's the one I made with the A Child is Born set in the blues and silvers. All right, if you have any questions, please put them down or contact me, and I'd be happy to answer those for you. I will have this on my blog, all the measurements and the supplies that I used for these, just in case you want to recreate them as is. But as I said, very easy just to use whatever supplies you have on hand, and have fun with it. Thanks for joining me. I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye for now.